You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. Prime Minister Modi dialed his dear friend, US President Donald Trump, and spoke about working together for global peace and security. They also spoke about measures to advance cooperation in areas such as tech, trade, and defense in their first conversation since the American leader's inauguration last week. In a significant development, India and China have agreed to resume the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra this summer, signaling efforts to rebuild ties between our two nations. Thousands of Palestinians streamed into Gaza's most heavily destroyed area under a fragile ceasefire after Israel opened the north for the first time since the early weeks of the 15-month war with Hamas.
DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win.
The sudden success of Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek triggered a global stock sell-off on Monday. The rout wiped out roughly $1 trillion from the US stock market, with Nvidia suffering the largest single-day loss in history. Trump says this should be a wake-up call for our industries. 67 Indians who were trafficked and forced to work in cyber scam centers in Laos have been rescued by the Embassy of India. CocaCola has recalled its drinks in some countries across Europe after detecting higher levels of the chemical chlorate. Well, our big focus, nearly a week after Donald Trump's second presidential inauguration, Prime Minister Modi engaged in a phone conversation with the US President, where both the leaders discussed critical world affairs and also reaffirmed their commitment to a strong but mutually beneficial partnership. Additionally, our Prime Minister and the US President agreed to meet soon at a mutually convenient time, with Trump's expected visit to India this year aligning with the summit of the Quad leaders. In fact, Prime Minister Modi wrote on X that he was delighted to speak with dear friend Trump. But you have to note that Prime Minister Modi's post also comes days after External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar and his US counterpart Marco Rubio held a bilateral meeting in which Washington said they discussed irregular migration. Take a look at the finer details, followed by Jessica Stone's report.
The United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
US President Donald Trump is back in the White House with the Modi-Trump bonhomie back in focus. A week after the historic inauguration, Prime Minister Narendra Modi dialed President Trump, congratulating whom he called a dear friend on a historic second term. A first conversation since the latter assumed office last week. Taking to X, PM Modi revealed that the two leaders discussed bilateral ties, underscoring New Delhi's commitment to a mutually beneficial and trusted partnership with Washington. He also emphasized that the two countries shared commitment to working together for global peace and stability. Foreign Minister Jaishankar was also one of the first to meet Secretary of State Marco Rubio hours after his Senate confirmation. The two discussed bilateral issues including immigration, visas, trade, and more. PM Modi, who is in his third term, shared a close relationship with the US leader during Trump's first presidency. The two leaders found common ground on a range of issues, from counterterrorism to the growing importance of the Indo-Pacific. It was also under Trump's first term that saw the revival of the Quad involving the US, India, Japan, and Australia over shared concerns over China's rising influence in the region. The group was upgraded to the ministerial level, with Washington recognizing India as a key partner in maintaining regional stability. However, this bonhomie is set to face a range of challenges, with President Trump vowing to impose reciprocal taxes, curb visas, and a whole lot more in his America First mission. In his first move as president, Trump, in a flurry of executive actions aimed at overhauling US immigration, revoked birthright citizenship, a major blow to Indian H-1B visa holder families. He has also threatened to impose sanctions on Russian oil if the war in Ukraine continues, further impacting India, who remains a major importer of Russian oil. Trade ties saw ups and downs as well during Trump's first term, and this will continue this time round, with the US president threatening to impose reciprocal tariffs to New Delhi, who he called a big abuser of trade. While this dialogue between the democracies in the early days of Trump 2.0 shows positive signs, one will have to wait and watch to see where India-US ties progress. Disha Bapchi for NDTV World.
The call between Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump, quote, productive, saying the two leaders spoke about security in the Indo-Pacific, in the Ukraine, and in West Asia, which the United States also calls the Middle East. Now, the White House readout singles out two issues of import here. Number one, Trump's calling on Modi to buy more U.S. defense equipment. And number two, Trump's call on Modi to even the trade playing field, in other words, to reduce the trade deficit, making trade between the two countries, quote, fair. On the first, recall that back in 2023, during the state visit of Prime Minister Modi to the United States, there was a concerted effort to better coordinate the militaries for military purchases, in particular with the creation of something called Indus X, which closely coordinated or began to closely coordinate the two militaries as well as the military industrial complexes. That resulted in India announcing 31 armed drones purchase for $4 billion and jointly producing with General Electric Company a jet engine for the F-14. Washington does want New Delhi to buy fewer weapons from Russia overall. It's been really pushing New Delhi on that because it wants to starve Moscow of cash for the Ukraine war. And on trade, the U.S. still has a trade deficit with India of about $46 billion. And we know very well that President Donald Trump does not like trade deficits, that he measures bilateral relations often by trade deficits. We are very sure that he will continue to push New Delhi to reduce that trade deficit, probably by buying more U.S. military goods. Now, lastly, a note about a potential visit by Prime Minister Modi to the White House. That was explicitly mentioned in the White House readout, with them calling for a, quote, soon meeting. And under the first Trump administration, Prime Minister Modi was here at the White House within 6 months of the Trump administration taking office. We could well see something that soon for a Modi visit here in Washington, D.C. in Trump 2.0.
And for a quick comment on the matter, we also have with us on the broadcast Jayant Krishna at the moment. As always, sir, thanks so much for making time for us. Looking back at the Trump administration's approach to India versus the Biden administration's, how would you characterize the trajectory of US-India relations now? Are we likely to see continuity or a drastic shift in this relationship as Trump re-enters the political scene?
See, my feeling is there'll not be as drastic a shift as many are talking about, because there is a lot of mutuality in the relationship between US and India. If you look at, business perspective, US is the largest FDI investor in India. If you look at US is India's largest trading partner, and India is USA's 7th largest trading partner. So there's a lot of export-import also that happens. And the good thing is that the US exports from India are of an order of about $125 billion, whereas what India imports from the US is about $80 billion, which means India exports more to the US than what it imports from the US. So there is a trade surplus in India's favor, So I think we have to negotiate very well right from the beginning. And despite President Trump's campaign where he said that he'll come up with reciprocal tariffs and increase the import duty, if India behaves like a import tariff king and so on and so forth, I think we have to start negotiating right from day one, because any tinkering with the import tariffs that US levies on India will have will have an adverse effect on our trade relationship. I think that's one. And second thing is where India has to, go very, very cautiously is about the H-1B visas. I'm not talking about the illegal migration. External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has said loud and clear that India does not support illegal migration, and all illegal, Indians who have migrated to the US through the Canada or the Mexico route illegally, the estimate is about 16 to 18,000 people, they have no business to live in the US. So there is no issue on that. But the H-1B visa, which is for skilled people, I think it does a lot of good to the American economy in terms of, we meet their trade deficit. We also, the skills deficit, we meet USA's skill deficit. And also, our techies, our doctors, our scientists who go there, they make the US economy globally competitive. So I think these things are very, very important to my mind. And, we have to negotiate. And last to not the least, to my mind, more than the geopolitical stuff and the Indo-Pacific regions, stability and so on and so forth. To my mind, India must focus if we have to realize our dream of becoming a major manufacturing hub. And part of the supply chains which terminate with China right now, the manufacturing supply chains I'm talking about,
Yes.
India has been aspiring to get some of it in India. And for that, it is very, very important. Some of the import of technology.
Right.
I have a few examples that come to my mind is the GE HAL jet engine technology. The semiconductor technologies. I think many
There is
for
massive
defense
potential on the
manufacturing.
radar, as you are
These are
highlighting
very,
as
very
well.
important to my
But
mind.
not disregarding the geopolitical landscape, many analysts are also asserting that this continued collaboration between both our countries, India and the US, is crucial, especially as both countries navigate issues like the West Asia situation, as well as the Russia-Ukraine war. But as always, Jay and Krishna, thank you so much for joining us with your views. The other big story we're tracking, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang called on China and India to explore more substantial measures to promote mutual understanding and support as he met with our Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in Beijing. India and China have also decided to resume the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. But according to a Chinese Foreign Ministry readout of the meeting between Mr. Misri and Mr. Wang, which was translated from Mandarin by Chinese state-backed media outlet CGTN, Wang Yi said India and China should refrain from mutual suspicion, mutual estrangement, and mutual exhaustion. Mohammad Ghazali breaks down all the details for us.
Yeah, certainly, because this entire visit was to move beyond the border dispute, because the dispute and the disengagement part was widely discussed back in Kazan summit last year in Russia, when Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, issued statements there that we have moved beyond it. Now there should be people-to-people connect and all. And this statement today issued by External Affairs Ministry here in India after the Foreign Secretary met there, some very concrete steps and discussions have taken place. One certainly being the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and India and China both have agreed in principle that perhaps in summer 2025 this year, the yatra, the pilgrimage should resume for both for the Indian pilgrims. Besides that, they have also agreed in principle to promote people-to-people exchanges by promoting exchanges between the media, between the think tank, because that was also one issue which was being raised by the Chinese, that India should give more visas or issues more visas to people from China or Chinese nationals who want to visit India. Besides that, the two sides have recognized that 2025 is the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations, which marks the diplomatic relations of between India and China. China is also going to host SCO summit, being the chair there, and Chinese readout suggested that India has been supporting China for that. Besides that, there are other issues like improving the air connectivity or increasing the frequency of air services between the two countries, and also a very important issue which has just erupted in the last couple of weeks about the trans-border river disputes, because China is also building mega dams which may impact India, being the lower riparian state. So these issues have also been discussed, and further discussions or further diplomatic talks on these issues will be held in coming days.
In other news, more than 3 lakh Palestinians streamed into Gaza's most heavily destroyed area under a fragile ceasefire after Israel opened the north for the first time since the early weeks of the 15-month war with Hamas. Israel, meanwhile, announced that 8 of the hostages to be freed in the weeks ahead are dead. But as you can see on your screens, massive crowds of Palestinians, some holding babies or pushing wheelchairs, walked with their belongings along a seaside road in a dramatic reversal of the mass exodus from the north that many had feared Israel would make permanent. Well, let's switch tracks now. The race for artificial intelligence supremacy has taken an unexpected twist that has sent shockwaves through global markets. The launch of DeepSeek, which is a Chinese-built chatbot and a new challenger to OpenAI's ChatGPT, immediately rattled investors and wiped a staggering $1 trillion off the US tech index. Some are calling it a Sputnik moment, signaling the start of a fierce battle for AI dominance between the United States and China. The shocks were actually felt across the Nasdaq Composite, which plummeted about 3.1% by the close of the day. At one point, the sell-off erased more than $1 trillion from the index's value, which stood at $32.5 trillion just last week. The catalyst? DeepSeek's emergence. This new AI competitor appeared to deliver similar capabilities to ChatGPT, but with far fewer resources. So investors, shaken by the implications, quickly fled from tech stocks. And NVIDIA, once a darling of AI tech, saw its market value fall by nearly $600 billion after its shares dropped 17%. And in a stunning turn of events, Apple overtook NVIDIA as the most valuable company in the United States. Meanwhile, as far as the tech giants are concerned, Google's parent company, Alphabet, lost $100 billion, and Microsoft saw a $7 billion hit. My colleague Subhana Sheikh has more on this.
A little over 2 weeks after its release, Chinese AI startup DeepSeek has reportedly overtaken ChatGPT to become the top-rated free app on Apple's App Store in the US as of January 27. Now let's break down and see the difference between DeepSeek and ChatGPT. Now DeepSeek is considered more cost-efficient. It was developed by a Chinese AI company called DeepSeek, where they spent $5.6 million to develop DeepSeek V3 model. It is sharply lower than millions that was pumped in by OpenAI to develop ChatGPT. Now DeepSeek also starts below $1 per month, and it is the subscription is below $1 per month, and it's much more affordable. On the other hand, OpenAI actually spent a whopping $100 million to train GPT-4 model, and ChatGPT's model starts at about $20 per month. Now, what are the key function areas? Now, DeepSeek actually excels in coding, math problems, and bug detection. It also beats ChatGPT and other larger models and helps with solving complex equations. And its a reasoning model, which is DeepSeek RI, has actually outperformed the latest version of OpenAI's latest model, which is O1, in math, coding, and general knowledge. It is also considered to be far more cost efficient and to operate as compared to OpenAI's ChatGPT. But DeepSeek is actually it lacks a response on sensitive and controversial subjects due to censorship protocols influenced by the Chinese government. On the current events, actually, DeepSeek has not made it, how clear it is, how up to date it is, and questions indicate that the model is updated until October 2023. On the other hand, ChatGPT is actually better at storytelling, jokes and marketing copies, and they're far more up to date on global events. On the response time, what we're hearing is that ChatGPT actually responds quicker on recent events, but faces challenges to generate contextually appropriate responses. But DeepSeek is largely on par, with ChatGPT, but its responses are slower in terms of subject-related topics.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has also underlined the emergence of DeepSeek as a significant development for American companies to consider. And speaking in Florida just on Monday, Trump described the advancement as a wake-up call for the US tech industry to strengthen its competitive edge. Here's what Trump had to say.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said, you have the most brilliant scientists in the world in Seattle and various places. But Silicon Valley, they said, there's nobody like those people. This is very unusual when you hear a DeepSeek, when you hear somebody come up with something. We always have the ideas. We're always first. So I would say that's a positive. That could be very much a positive development. So instead of spending billions and billions, you'll spend less and you'll come up with, hopefully, the same.
Well, let's switch tracks now. At least 67 Indian nationals who were lured into illegal work in Laos were rescued, and their exit formalities are underway as we speak to send them back home. This is what the Indian Embassy has confirmed. The citizens were rescued from cyber scam centers operating at the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone in Bukeo province of Laos, is what we know. But 67 Indian nationals who were lured into illegal work in Laos were rescued by the Indian embassy. And India has sent a humanitarian aid consignment to the Kurdistan region of Iraq, consisting of inhalers and ventilators and some medical equipment to support the people in need. This is what the Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed. Now, as you know, India and Iraq actually share historical and civilizational ties. Since the outbreak of war in Iraq, India has been supporting a free, democratic, pluralistic, federal and unified Iraq. Well, with that, we're slipping into a very short break. We're back in a moment with much more. Do stay tuned.
Union Budget 2025, first budget of Modi 3.0. Great expectations, big bang reforms, tax relief to middle class. What will February 1st bring for you? Budget 2025. Stay ahead with NDTV.
Well, I'm in Altadena. This is one of the worst hit areas. When disaster strikes, NDTV World brings you exclusive on-the-ground reports straight from the heart of the action.
A neighborhood in Los Angeles that has been devastated by fire.
I just received an emergency alert extreme, which has come on my phone.
Stay tuned for NDTV World's in-depth coverage as we bring you the real stories from Los Angeles.
This is the Altadena area, and there are still fires, and there's a lot of smoke in the area. These houses completely gutted.
This is reporting that matters only on NDTV World.
Modi 3.0 Budget 1.
It's a very complex backdrop this time. We have a lot of global uncertainties.
Will the salaried class get tax relief?
I don't see, a big tax cut being the main focus of this budget.
Will the finance minister step up reforms? Top economists and experts share their views.
The challenge is to improve consumption of the bottom segments.
On Budget Bites at 7:30 p.m. only on NDTV 24/7.
Mahakumbh, a festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival, the divine dip at the spiritual Sangam, a sacred confluence of faith, culture and heritage. NDTV's mega coverage.
Well, Coca-Cola has recalled its drinks in some countries across Europe after detecting higher levels of the chemical chlorate. Cans and glass bottles containing elevated levels of the substance were distributed in Belgium, Britain, France, Germany, Luxembourg and the Netherlands since November. This is what the company has said in a statement on Monday. It added that 5 product lines had been shipped to Britain at the end of last year and had already been sold. But affected products include the Coke, Fanta, Minute Maid, Sprite and Tropico brands, according to the Belgian branch of Coca-Cola's international bottling and distribution operation. By the way, you must note that exposure to high levels of the chemical compound can cause health issues, including thyroid problems, especially among children and babies. Well, let's turn our attention to the other big story we're tracking. After a fiery showdown, the United States and Colombia walked away from the brink of a trade war after the White House said the South American nation had agreed to accept military aircraft carrying deported migrants. Donald Trump had threatened tariffs and sanctions on Colombia to punish it for earlier refusing to accept military flights carrying deportees as part of his sweeping immigration crackdown. In fact, for further clarity on the matter, we have with us Spencer Critchley, live from Monterey, California. Thanks so much, Spencer, for joining us on NDTV. Spencer, what does this really say about Trump's use of tariffs as a tool of diplomacy? Is this being seen as an example of Successful negotiation or just another instance of erratic foreign policy?
I would say very much the latter from my point of view. Even if you were to adopt Donald Trump's Make America Great Again philosophy, always put America first, it doesn't even make any sense from that point of view. The way he treats his allies, the way he treats U.S. allies, is guaranteed to weaken those alliances. And as I am far from the first to note, America's allies are one of its greatest sources of strength.
Indeed.
If you compare the United States to Russia, for example, it's not just that the United States has far more money and a far more powerful military, it's that the United States has hundreds of allies around the world who believe it's in their interest to cooperate and trade with the United States because they can trust the United States to treat them well and to make it mutually beneficial. But Trump has come into office threatening allies such as Denmark with his demand to take over Greenland, Canada, one of our very closest allies, and Panama, and now Colombia, who are emerging as a very important trading partner with the United States. It just makes no sense at all, even from the perspective of his commitment to pure self-interest.
Well, Spencer, thanks so much for joining us with your quick comments on NDTV. In fact, in the broader context of Trump's America First foreign policy as well, I guess we'll have to wait and watch how the use of tariffs evolve, and we will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. Well, with that, let's turn our attention now to Turkey, where a multi-story blaze has broken out at a hotel construction site in a popular Turkish resort town, leaving workers trapped inside. In fact, rescuers worked to reach the builders who were trapped inside the 9-story building, which was engulfed in flames in Antalya. But earlier this month as well, 76 people perished after another Turkish hotel caught fire. This is the latest incident being reported from Turkey. Meanwhile, to Paris now, where fire engulfed the town hall of Paris's 12th district, causing no casualties, fortunately, but severely damaging the bell tower of the 19th century building. Just take a look at those visuals. Paris police said the fire broke out at 3:20 a.m. in the roof of the building, and about 150 firefighters battled these flames, and the fire was extinguished. But officials have warned that there is a risk of collapse of the upper part of the bell that you see on fire, so a security area has been set up around that building. Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, news and updates continue right here. We'll keep tracking the latest for you.
Kind attention, please. Delhi Election Metro 2025 is arriving on People's Platform.
Please mind the gap.
BJP or AAP, who will get to the Delhi Secretariat station?
दरवाजे बाईं तरफ खुलेंगे.
Who will Delhi voters open the victory doors for? And who will be shown the door? Can the BJP throw AAP's victory run off track? Or will it be Kejriwal's ticket to win again? Can Congress take the election metro to revival? We will track it all for you. Delhi's decision destination.
Doors will open on the left.
Stay tuned to NDTV for mega metro poll coverage. Union Budget 2025. First budget of Modi 3.0. Great expectations, big bang reforms, tax relief to middle class. What will February 1st bring for you? Budget 2025. Stay ahead with NDTV.
Well, I'm in Altadena. This is one of the worst hit areas when disaster strikes. NDTV World brings you exclusive on-the-ground reports straight from the heart of the action.
A neighborhood in Los Angeles that has been devastated by fire.
I just received an emergency alert extreme, which has come on my phone.
Stay tuned for NDTV World's in-depth coverage as we bring you the real stories from Los Angeles.
This is the Altadena area, and there are still fires and there's a lot of smoke in the area. These houses completely gutted. This is reporting that matters only on NDTV World.
Modi 3.0 Budget 1.
It's a very complex backdrop.
A very good morning. You're watching The Breakfast Show on NDTV 24/7. I'm Divya Vavla. We have a whole lot lined up for you over the next 1 hour, including Prime Minister Modi has spoken with Donald Trump, the first conversation they've had ever since Donald Trump took over as the president for the second time. Well, it is Prime Minister Modi who has described the relationship between